It's throbbing again. Did you break it? Alien medics panic. The light hurt, a sharp chemical white stabbing through closed eyelids. Pain throbbed behind his eyes, a dull, insistent drumbeat. He tried to lift a hand, found it heavy, unresponsive, restrained. No, just leaden. Air hissed, thin and recycled, scraping his dry throat. Where the hell? A shadow moved against the white glare, tall, indistinct. Designation: Subject Caleb Hayes. Status: conscious. Vitals suboptimal but stabilizing. The voice was female, flat, devoid of inflection. Filtered, maybe. Like listening through cheap speakers underwater. It came from the shadow. He managed to crack his eyes open. The light was blinding. The shadow resolved into a silhouette, tall, lean, clad in something dark and smooth that didn't reflect the harsh light. No discernible features, just a shape against the glare. A blank faceplate stared down at him. Great, abducted by mannequins. He tried to speak, coughed instead, a dry, rattling sound in his chest. Hydration levels are low, the flat voice stated. Fluid administration recommended. A thin tube appeared near his mouth, held by a gloved hand. The glove looked seamless, dark gray. He instinctively turned his head away. Negative reaction noted, the voice said, withdrawing the tube slightly. Is the delivery method causing distress? Where? His voice was a croak. He swallowed, tried again. Where am I? Medical Bay Delta. Secure Facility 7. Your vessel experienced catastrophic failure in Sector Gamma 9. Catastrophic failure, understatement of the century. He remembered alarms, the screech of tearing metal, then nothing. You sustained significant trauma, cranial impact, multiple fractures, internal hemorrhaging. The list went on, delivered with the emotional weight of reading a grocery list. Medical intervention was necessary for survival. He shifted slightly on the hard surface beneath him. A cot, a slab, felt like metal. Cold seeped through the thin fabric covering him. Who are you? Designation: Unit 734. Assigned medical oversight for Subject Caleb Hayes. Unit 734. Catchy. He closed his eyes again, fighting nausea. The throbbing in his head picked up tempo. Right. Unit 734. Thanks for the patching up. Medical protocols were followed according to Interstellar Emergency Aid Compact. Section 4, Paragraph 12. Always comforting to know the paperwork's in order. He felt a cool pressure on his forehead. He flinched, eyes snapping open. Unit 734, he'd just call her 734 in his head, maybe just 7, was leaning closer. Her faceplate was inches away, a blank, dark oval reflecting the harsh lights distortedly. He couldn't see anything behind it. Her gloved fingers were surprisingly gentle against his skin, but the touch was clinical, cold. It sent an unpleasant shiver down his spine despite the efficiency. Core temperature slightly elevated, she reported, her voice unchanged. Monitoring for febrile response. She withdrew her hand. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, being examined like a lab rat. Wonderful. How long was I out? Approximately 7.3 standard rotations. Days, weeks. Rotations, she repeated, as if that clarified everything. Your biological clock requires recalibration. Standard temporal references are inefficient. Helpful, he tried to sit up, pain shooting through his ribs. He hissed, falling back. Mobility is currently restricted, Seven stated calmly. Attempting premature ambulation risks re-injury, specifically thoracic cage instability. Got it, don't move. He stared up at the white ceiling panels. Fluorescent tubes buzzed faintly. So, Secure Facility 7, where exactly is that? Friendly neighborhood. Location classified under Security Directive Alpha. Of course it is, and my ship. Debris field surveyed. No recoverable technology or personnel identified. The finality of it hit him harder than the wall he presumably flew into. Gone, just gone, his crew, his ship, everything. A hollow ache opened in his chest, separate from the physical pain. Seven's faceplate tilted slightly. Your heart rate has increased by 15 beats per minute. Respiration is shallow. Are you experiencing renewed physical discomfort? Something like that, he muttered, turning his head away, focusing on the metallic wall beside the cot. Blank, featureless, like everything else here. Describe the sensation. Like I got kicked in the gut by reality. There was a pause, longer than usual. Your colloquialism is not in the medical database. Please clarify the physical locus and nature of the pain. He almost laughed, almost. It's not physical, forget it. Emotional distress, she inquired, the term sounding odd in her flat tone. Psychological assessment can be scheduled if required. Oh, can it? Goody. No thanks, I'm fine. Your physiological signs contradict your statement. She moved closer again, her shadow falling over him. He felt trapped, pinned by her presence as much as by his injuries. Compliance with medical observation is mandatory for optimal recovery. Her hand reached towards his chest. He tensed. What are you doing? Monitoring cardiac function directly. Subdermal sensors indicate arrhythmia. Her fingers pressed against the thin fabric over his sternum, cool through the cloth, firm. He could feel the faint vibration of her touch, the sheer otherness of it. It wasn't hostile, but it wasn't comforting either. It was just diagnostic, invasive. His heart hammered against her touch. Stop that, stupid organ. Significant tachycardia, she noted, her voice unwavering. Correlation with proximity appears statistically significant. You think, maybe don't, loom. She withdrew her hand immediately. Apologies. Personal space parameters for human subjects are variable. Your file indicated a baseline tolerance, but current stress factors may alter requirements. My file, they have a file since when? Standard procedure for contact scenarios involving Class 4 civilizations. Class 4 sounded impressive, probably meant barely capable of not setting ourselves on fire. He sighed, the movement pulling at his ribs. Pain flared. Administering analgesic, Seven announced. He felt a faint prick on his arm, followed by a spreading warmth. The sharp edges of the pain began to dull, replaced by a heavy, woolly sensation. Better, she asked. Peachy, he mumbled, the word thick on his tongue. The light seemed less harsh now. Her silhouette wavered slightly. Rest is indicated, Seven stated. I will continue monitoring remotely. Her shadow retreated, the hiss of a nearby door sliding open, then shut. He was alone in a sterile box, patched up by an alien mannequin with cold hands and a file on him. The analgesic pulled him down, blurring the edges of fear and loss into a dull ache. His last conscious thought wasn't about his lost ship or crew, but about the unnerving coolness of that diagnostic touch on his chest. Just wrong. Waking was less jarring the second time. The throbbing in his head was a background hum, managed by whatever miracle drug Seven was pumping into him. The room was dimmer, lit by soft, indirect light strips along the ceiling edges. He could move his arms now cautiously. His ribs still protested, but it was a dull complaint, not a sharp stab. He sat up slowly, swinging his legs over the side of the cot. Bare feet met cold metal flooring. He was wearing loose, gray pants and a thin, long-sleeved shirt. Standard issue prisoner garb, probably, or patient garb. Same difference. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Seven entered, carrying a tray. She moved with a quiet, fluid grace that was unnerving for something that looked so rigid in its dark suit. The blank faceplate turned towards him. Subject haze, ambulation detected, your status. Still breathing, he said, testing his weight on his feet. A wave of dizziness washed over him. He gripped the edge of the cot. Okay, maybe take it slow. Nutrient paste and hydration solution, she announced, placing the tray on a small table that extended from the wall near the cot. The paste was a gray sludge in a bowl, looked appetizing. The solution was water, Thank God for small favors. Thanks, he muttered, sitting back down. He picked up the spoon beside the bowl. It felt light, plasticky. Seven stood nearby, observing. Not awkwardly, just observing, like a biologist watching a specimen. It set his teeth on edge. Is the nutrient paste palatable? She asked after he'd taken a tentative spoonful. It tasted like nothing. Chalky, slightly metallic. 5 stars, he said dryly. Gourmet. Her head tilted slightly. Your vocal tone indicates sarcasm. However, sarcasm is typically used to convey contempt or mockery. Are you expressing dissatisfaction with the sustenance provided? Caught me, it's food, it's fine. He took another spoonful. Survival first, taste complaints later. Your file notes a preference for flavored consumables, particularly synthesized sucrose and salted protein analogs. They know I like donuts and jerky. How detailed is this damn file? Yeah, well, beggars can't be choosers. The term beggar implies a state of destitution requesting charity. Your situation is classified as medical detainment, not destitution. He sighed, rubbing his temples. Talking to her was exhausting. It's an expression. Understood. Updating linguistic correlation. Beggars can't be choosers equates to acceptance of suboptimal conditions due to lack of alternatives. Exactly. He focused on the gray sludge, easier than looking at that blank faceplate. She didn't leave, just stood there. The silence stretched, filled only by the faint hum of the room's systems and the scraping of his spoon against the bowl. He felt her gaze, even though he couldn't see her eyes. It was a weight, a pressure. He finished the paste, pushing the bowl away, drank the water greedily. Physical therapy regimen will commence post-ingestion, Seven stated. Assisted ambulation exercises are required to prevent muscular atrophy. Right, let's go for a stroll. He stood up again, more carefully this time, still dizzy but manageable. She moved to his side. I will provide support. She placed a hand on his upper arm. Her grip was firm, secure, and cold even through the fabric of his sleeve. He tried not to stiffen, failed. Your musculature is tense, she observed. Are you anticipating a fall? Something like that, he lied. It wasn't the fall he was worried about. It was the contact, the feeling of being handled, managed, controlled. They walked slowly around the small room, back and forth. Her hand remained on his arm, guiding him, steadying him. He focused on putting one foot in front of the other, trying to ignore the unnerving proximity, the cool pressure of her grip. After a few circuits, she stopped him near the cot. Respiration and heart rate remain elevated beyond predicted exertion levels. Is the physical strain excessive? It's fine, he said, pulling his arm away as subtly as he could, which wasn't subtle at all. He sat down, needing the support, just out of shape. Your physical conditioning prior to the incident was recorded as above average for your species. Damn file, long trip got lazy. Her faceplate seemed to stare at him, judging. No, probably just processing. Discrepancy noted. Continue monitoring. She retracted the small table into the wall, picked up the tray. Rest interval before next assessment. The door hissed open. Hey, Seven, he called out impulsively. She paused in the doorway, turning slightly. Yes, subject Hayes. My name, it's Caleb. There was another slight pause. Acknowledged. Designation remains subject Hayes for official record-keeping. The door hissed shut, leaving him alone again with the hum and the cold floor. Progress? Probably not. He lay back on the cot. The brief walk had tired him more than he expected. Or maybe it was the constant, low-level stress of her presence. Her touch, though clinical, lingered on his skin like a static charge. Unsettling. He needed to get out of this room, out of this facility. But how? He was injured, alone, and his medic was an unnerving alien who knew his favorite snack foods. Fantastic. Days or rotations, or whatever they were called, blurred into a routine. Wake, eat nutrient paste, endure Seven's clinical examinations and observations, Attempt physical therapy. Try not to flinch at her touch. Fail. Listen to her flat assessments of his physiological state, then retreat into exhausted sleep. The physical therapy progressed from laps around the medical bay to supervised walks in the corridor outside. The corridors were utilitarian, metallic gray walls, strip lighting, occasional numbered doors. Empty. Silent, except for the ubiquitous hum and the soft tap of Seven's boots accompanying his own shuffling steps. Her presence was a constant pressure at his side. Sometimes she'd guide him with a hand on his arm, sometimes just walk silently beside him, her tall silhouette a constant reminder of his confinement. He found himself acutely aware of the space between them, trying to maintain a buffer, an instinct she seemed to notice. "Your spatial positioning indicates avoidance behavior," she commented one day as they walked. "Are you experiencing discomfort related to my proximity?" "Bingo, just need some room," he said, trying to sound casual. "Humans are funny about personal space." "Variable parameters noted," she replied. "However, optimal support during ambulation requires closer contact. Your gait remains unstable." To prove her point, she placed her hand firmly on his lower back as he navigated a slight ramp. The touch was unexpected, different from the arm grip, solid, supportive, but also intensely jarring. It anchored him but also felt like being branded. He nearly stumbled. Smooth haze. "Increased instability noted," Seven said, her grip tightening slightly. "Maintain focus." "Easy for you to say, blank face." He gritted his teeth and kept walking, acutely aware of the cool pressure against his spine. It wasn't painful, wasn't threatening, but it felt possessive, like she was staking a claim, which was ridiculous. She was a medic, Unit 734, doing her job. He glanced sideways at her. The dark suit absorbed the light. The faceplate reflected the corridor dimly. Still nothing. Who was under there? What did they even look like? Did they eat nutrient paste too? Did they have names or just designations? "What do you do when you're not monitoring me?" he asked, the question slipping out before he could stop it. "My duties include biological data analysis, systems maintenance, and threat assessment monitoring for this facility." Sounds thrilling. Sarcasm again, he couldn't help it. It was his only defense. "Efficiency is prioritized over subjective thrill," she replied, missing the tone entirely, or choosing to ignore it. "My functions are integral to facility operations." They reached the end of the designated therapy route, an intersection with another identical corridor. Seven stopped him. "Exercise period concluded. Return to Medical Bay Delta." As they turned, he caught sight of something down the intersecting corridor. Another figure, tall like Seven but bulkier, wearing a similar dark suit. It paused, faceplate turning towards them, then continued on its way, disappearing around a corner. "Who was that?" he asked, nodding down the empty corridor. "Unit 612, security detail." "You have security? Against what, me?" "Standard protocol for facilities housing non-indigenous life forms." "Non-indigenous, that's me." He felt a chill that had nothing to do with the corridor temperature. Detainee, specimen, threat. Back in the medical bay, Seven ran her usual scans. A handheld device hummed near his chest, then his head. He endured it, staring fixedly at the opposite wall. "Healing progression is within expected parameters," she stated, putting the device away. "Fractures are calcifying adequately. Internal tissues show reduced inflammation." "Good, so when can I leave?" "Discharge is contingent upon full recovery and assessment by Sector Command." "Sector Command, more bureaucracy. How long does that usually take?" "Processing times vary depending on case complexity and command priority." Translation: don't hold your breath. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It felt greasy. He needed a shower, he needed real food, he needed out. "Subject Hayes," Seven said, her voice pulling him back. He looked up. She was holding out a small, metallic object, a data chip. What's this? Per Directive 7 Gamma, detainees are permitted access to approved cultural or informational materials for psychological well-being. This unit contains selected entries from your vessel's public data logs, primarily entertainment media. He stared at the chip, then at her blank faceplate. Entertainment, movies, music from his ship, a bizarre gesture. Why? Analysis indicates sustained low-level psychological stress. Access to familiar stimuli may alleviate anxiety and improve compliance. Improve compliance. Right, keep the specimen calm. Still, the thought of hearing familiar music, seeing a familiar movie, it was tempting, a connection to his lost life. He reached out and took the chip. Her gloved fingers brushed his as he took it. Another jolt like static electricity. He snatched his hand back faster than intended. The chip felt cool and smooth in his palm. There is a data port integrated into the wall panel beside the cot, she informed him, gesturing. Interface protocols are standard. Thanks, he mumbled, avoiding looking at her. This felt weird. An alien jailer giving him movie night privileges based on stress analysis. Nutrient cycle will commence in 0.5 standard hours, she stated, turning to leave. The door hissed open. 7. She paused again. Yes, Caleb, she'd used his name, that was new, threw him off balance. This facility, what's its purpose, besides fixing up crash survivors? Her faceplate remained turned towards the door, but she didn't leave immediately. Secure Facility 7 serves multiple functions: research, containment, strategic observation. Containment, of what besides me? Classified, she replied, and the door slid shut behind her. Research, containment, strategic observation, and he was right in the middle of it. He looked down at the data chip in his hand, a small comfort maybe, or just another tool to keep the lab rat placid. He wasn't sure which was worse. He used the data port, slid the chip in. A section of the wall panel opposite his cot shimmered, then resolved into a screen. Familiar menus popped up. Music, movies, some old news archives from Earth. Seeing the interface, the logos, the familiar fonts, it was like a punch to the gut, a wave of homesickness so strong it made him dizzy. He scrolled through the music first, found some old rock playlist he hadn't listened to in years, hit play. The opening riff filled the sterile room. It sounded tinny, wrong in this environment, but it was real. It was human. He lay back on the cot, closing his eyes, letting the music wash over him. It didn't fix anything. Didn't bring back his crew, didn't get him off this station, didn't make the alien medic less unnerving. But it was something familiar in a universe that had suddenly become terrifyingly alien. 7 returned later with the nutrient paste. The music was still playing, softer now. She didn't comment on it, just placed the tray down. Your selection is classified as classic rock, she stated, characterized by amplified string instruments and percussive emphasis. Yeah, nostalgia. Nostalgia, she repeated, tilting her head. Sentimental longing for the past. Does auditory stimulation effectively induce this state? Guess so. He picked up the spoon. The paste seemed even grayer today. She lingered while he ate as usual. The rock music played softly between them. It felt surreal. Eating alien sludge while listening to Led Zeppelin, watched by a faceless figure in a dark suit. Just another Tuesday or rotation or whatever. The rhythmic patterns are mathematically complex, 7 observed after a long silence. Is the complexity the source of the nostalgia? It's the feeling, the memories associated with it. How could he explain it to a being who probably processed emotions like data points? Association mapping, she murmured, almost to herself. Inefficient but potentially potent psychological mechanism. She turned towards the data port. Access logs indicate you primarily selected musical archives, minimal engagement with visual entertainment. Not really in a movie mood. Understood. She collected his empty tray, Physical therapy scheduled for zero point 0.8 hours. As she reached the door, he asked, "Do you have music your species?" She paused, hand hovering over the door control. "We have auditory compositions designed to optimize cognitive function and emotional regulation." Sounds practical, probably sounds like dial-up modem noise. Functionality is the primary metric, she confirmed and left. The physical therapy walks became slightly longer. He was getting stronger, the dizziness mostly gone. His ribs were a dull ache, ignorable. Seven's supportive touches became less frequent, but her presence remained a constant, unnerving weight beside him. One session, navigating a section of corridor where the floor panels were slightly uneven, he misjudged a step. His ankle twisted. He stumbled sideways right into her. The impact was solid, like hitting a padded wall but denser. He braced his hands against her suit, smooth, cool, strangely unyielding material. For a split second, he was pressed against her side, her shoulder bumping his chest. It wasn't sexual, wasn't aggressive, just pure awkward collision. But the proximity, the unexpected solidness of her, sent a jolt through him far stronger than any of her clinical touches. He pushed back immediately, regaining his balance. "Sorry." Seven remained perfectly still, unmoved by the collision. Her faceplate was directly in front of his, close enough to see the faint scratches on the dark surface, the way the corridor lights reflected in distorted lines. "No damage sustained," she stated, her voice as flat as ever. But was there a fractional delay before she spoke? He couldn't be sure. "Your balance remains compromised. Recommend reduced pace." "Yeah, right." He felt flustered, thrown off more by the brief, solid contact than the near fall. He deliberately put more space between them as they continued walking. She didn't try to close the distance. Later, back in the medical bay during the routine scan, her hand brushed against his bare arm as she adjusted a sensor. Usually, he'd just flinch internally. This time, the accidental contact felt different, charged. He jerked his arm back involuntarily. Seven froze, sensor held midair. "Subject haze. Your autonomic reactions are escalating. Increased heart rate, galvanic skin response spike, involuntary muscle contraction. Are you experiencing pain?" "No, just surprised." Lame excuse. She lowered the sensor slowly. Her faceplate seemed fixed on him. The physical contact was minimal, accidental, and within standard examination parameters. Your reaction appears disproportionate. "Tell me about it. Maybe I'm developing an allergy to medical procedures." Allergic reactions typically present with histamine release, dermal inflammation, or respiratory distress. "None are detected," she sounded, puzzled. Or was that just his projection onto the blank slate? Perhaps the cumulative stress is manifesting somatically. "Perhaps," he agreed, just wanting the examination to be over. She completed the scan without further physical contact, using instruments at a slight distance. It felt both relieving and strangely tense, like she was deliberately avoiding touching him now, which was what he wanted, wasn't it? So why did it feel like something had shifted, something unspoken hanging in the air? "Recovery progressing," she said finally, her voice returning to its usual clinical monotone. "Full mobility likely within 3 rotations." And then sector command. "Assessment request has been submitted, response pending." She turned to leave. 7. She stopped at the door, a now familiar ritual. "Does your species touch for non-medical reasons?" The pause was definite this time. Longer. He could hear the faint hum of the facility systems filling the silence. "Physical contact protocols are complex," she said eventually. "Reserved for specific relational contexts, typically involving bonded units or familial structures." Bonded units. Pairings based on long-term compatibility and shared objectives. Marriage alien style. Right, got it. She tilted her head slightly. "Is this information relevant to your recovery?" Just curious, he deflected, seeing as you're the only person I talk to. Acknowledged, the door hissed shut. He stared at the closed door, bonded units, complex protocols, reserved contact, and he just stumbled into her like an idiot. Great. Way to respect the local customs, Hayes. He felt a flush of embarrassment quickly followed by irritation. Why should he care? She was his alien jailer medic. Unit 734. It didn't matter. Except apparently it did. Because the memory of that solid impact, the brief, unyielding closeness, lingered far more persistently than any clinical touch had. 3 rotations later, he was declared fully mobile. The aches were gone, replaced by a restless energy. Confined to the medical bay and the adjacent therapy corridor, he felt like a caged animal. 7 still brought his nutrient paste, still performed scans, but the physical therapy stopped. Her visits became shorter, more purely functional. The avoidance of touch seemed deliberate now. He spent hours packing the small room or staring at the wall screen, flipping through his salvaged media without really engaging. The silence felt heavier without the forced interaction of therapy. He missed the walks, bizarrely enough. Even with the constant tension, it had been something, a change of scenery, a task. He found himself watching 7 more closely during her brief visits, looking for, what? A crack in the facade, a hint of the being behind the faceplate. There was nothing. Just the smooth, dark suit, the blank face, the flat voice delivering status updates. Sector Command has acknowledged the assessment request, she reported one morning. Review scheduled for Cycle Omega. And when is Cycle Omega? Approximately 1.5 standard rotations from current time. Closer, maybe there was an end to this. What happens in the assessment? A command specialist will evaluate your physiological and psychological stability, assess potential security risks, and determine appropriate disposition. Disposition, like where you're going to dump me. Disposition refers to the final settlement of your case. Options include repatriation, transfer to a long-term observation facility, or integration assistance, depending on multiple factors. Repatriation, going home. The thought sent a surge of hope through him, so sharp it was almost painful, but long-term observation, integration assistance, sounded ominous. I just want to go home, he said, the words feeling raw. Your stated preference is noted in the file, 7 replied, her tone unchanging. Final decision rests with Sector Command. She turned to leave. He didn't stop her this time. What was the point? The waiting was the worst part. 1.5 rotations, an eternity in this box. He tried reading old technical manuals from the data chip, tried losing himself in movies, but his mind kept circling back to the upcoming assessment. What would they ask? What were they looking for? Would they believe he wasn't a threat? Was he a threat? He didn't feel like one, just a guy who wanted his life back. He was packing, agitated, when the red alert lights suddenly flashed overhead, bathing the room in pools in crimson. A low, guttural alarm klaxon began to sound through the facility. What now? His heart hammered against his ribs. The door to his room hissed open, but it wasn't 7. It was one of the bulky security units, 612 maybe, hard to tell. Its faceplate was the same blank oval. It held a weapon, some kind of energy rifle leveled low. Subject Hayes, remain calm. Security event in progress. Its voice was deeper than 7's, harsher. Before Hayes could react, 7 appeared behind the security unit, moving quickly. Unit 612, stand down. Subject is secure under my supervision. Negative, Unit 734. Sector lockdown initiated. External breach detected. All non-essential personnel and detainees confined to quarters. My assessment indicates relocating the subject to a more secure internal node is prudent, 7 argued, her voice still flat but somehow insistent. Negative, orders are clear, maintain position. The security unit didn't budge. An explosion rocked the facility, distant but powerful enough to make the floor vibrate. The lights flickered violently. The alarm klaxon intensified. External breach. What the hell is attacking an alien research station? Panic clawed at his throat. Seven stepped past the security unit directly into the room. Protocol override, medical emergency. Subject requires immediate transfer due to environmental instability. She grabbed his arm. Her grip was iron, not clinical, not supportive. Urgent. Unit 734, you are countermanding direct orders. The security unit protested, raising its weapon slightly. Log my actions. Priority Alpha, asset preservation. Seven snapped, the word snapped sounding utterly alien in her usually monotone voice. She pulled Hayes towards the door. He stumbled after her, caught completely off guard. Stop, the security unit moved to block them. Seven didn't slow down. She shoved Hayes behind her slightly and slammed her free hand into the security unit's chest plate. Not a punch, a hard, open-palmed impact. Unit 612 staggered back a step, weapon lowering momentarily in surprise. In that instant, Seven pulled Hayes through the doorway and slapped the emergency lock control beside the frame. The door slammed shut, plunging the corridor into the red pulse of the emergency lights. Heavy locking bolts thudded into place on the other side. Banging started almost immediately. This way, quickly, Seven commanded, pulling him down the corridor away from the sealed door. Her grip on his arm was relentless. He had no choice but to run, stumbling to keep up with her long strides. The alarm wailed. Distant shouts, more thuds, the screech of stressed metal echoed through the hallways. Asset preservation, that's me, some kind of asset. His mind raced, trying to process the chaos. Seven wasn't just a medic, she had authority, she could fight, and she was prioritizing him over security protocols. Why? They rounded a corner, heading deeper into the facility. Another explosion, closer this time, shook the deck plating. Dust sifted down from the ceiling vents. Where are we going? He gasped, lungs burning. Sublevel emergency shelter, designed to withstand structural collapse. What's happening? Who's attacking? Insufficient data, likely external aggressors exploiting temporary system vulnerability. She didn't slow down. Her faceplate reflected the flashing red lights, still unreadable, but her grip felt different, tighter, almost possessive. Or was that just his panic talking? They reached a heavy blast door marked with unfamiliar symbols. Seven slapped her palm against a panel beside it. It scanned her handprint. Green light flashed. The heavy door hissed open, revealing a cramped, dark space beyond. Inside, she ordered, pushing him gently but firmly through the opening. He stumbled into the small compartment. It was barely large enough for two people, metal walls, a single bench, minimal emergency lighting. Seven followed him in and hit the control panel again. The blast door slammed shut, sealing them inside with a heavy final thud. The roar of the alarm, the sounds of chaos outside, were instantly muffled, reduced to a distant, vibrating hum. Silence, darkness, broken only by a single, low-power green emergency light strip overhead. He could hear his own ragged breathing, the frantic thumping of his heart, and Seven's breathing, soft, even hisses of recycled air from her suit's filtration. She stood near the door control panel, her back to it, facing him. Her silhouette filled the small space. He felt trapped, cornered, not just by the room but by her, by the situation. "We are secure here," she stated, her voice regaining some of its usual flatness, though maybe a bit quicker paced. For now. He leaned against the cold metal wall, trying to catch his breath. His adrenaline was crashing, leaving him shaky. "Asset preservation," he repeated, looking at her dark shape. "What does that mean?" Her head tilted. The green light cast strange, faint highlights on her faceplate. "Your unique physiological and genetic markers represent valuable data. Your survival is prioritized." Valuable data, so still a specimen, just a valuable one. Somehow that felt worse. Valuable to who? Your sector command. To ongoing research initiatives. Research into what? How to make better nutrient paste. The sarcasm was weak, edged with genuine fear. She didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched again, thick with unspoken tension and the low hum of the shelter's life support. He could feel her presence intensely in the confined space. Couldn't escape it. Couldn't ignore the fact that she'd defied orders, used physical force, locked them in here together. To protect valuable data. The situation outside, he started, needing to break the silence, is it bad? Analysis suggests a coordinated assault. Facility defenses are partially compromised. So we just wait here. This shelter provides maximum protection currently available. We wait for the security event to resolve or for extraction protocols to activate. Waiting, trapped in a box with an alien who considered him valuable data, while unknown aggressors tried to tear the place apart. Fantastic. He slid down the wall to sit on the floor, pulling his knees up to his chest. Seven remained standing, a silent, dark statue near the door. He watched her silhouette, the faint green light catching the edge of her helmet. The lack of information, the closeness, the underlying threat from outside. It was shredding his nerves. He needed to do something, anything. But there was nothing to do, just wait, and try not to think about how close she was, how she'd felt when he collided with her, solid, unyielding, how her grip had felt pulling him through the corridor, urgent, strong. Suddenly, the shelter lurched violently. A deafening roar vibrated through the hull, louder than anything before. Metal screamed nearby. The single green light strip flickered, died, plunging them into absolute darkness. Then, emergency power kicked in. A faint, red glow emanated from the control panel near Seven. He scrambled backwards instinctively, heart pounding. What was that? Severe structural damage detected in adjacent sectors. Seven's voice came out of the red-tinged darkness, still controlled but maybe strained. Hull integrity potentially compromised nearby. Another impact closer. The entire shelter shuddered. Dust rained down. He could feel the vibrations through the floor, intense, terrifying. He lost his balance in the darkness, scrambling, trying to find purchase on the shaking deck. His hand brushed against something solid, her leg. He jerked back as if burned. Remain calm, Caleb. Her voice was sharp, cutting through his panic, using his name again. Panic degrades tactical assessment. But he couldn't. The darkness, the shaking, the feeling of being buried alive. It was too much. He felt a primal urge to bolt, to claw his way out. He pushed himself up, stumbling towards where he thought the door was. He slammed right into her. Harder this time. Full body contact in the near darkness. His face pressed against the smooth, cool material of her suit, somewhere around her shoulder. He could feel the faint vibration of her life support systems. Her arms came up instinctively, closing around him, not in an embrace, but to steady them both as the shelter bucked again. For a moment they were locked together. His panic surged, trapped against this alien form. He could smell ozone, recycled air. Something clean and sterile mixed with the faint metallic tang of fear, his fear. He tried to push away, but her grip tightened reflexively, pinning him against her. It wasn't aggressive, just reactive strength. Overwhelming. Stabilize, she commanded, her voice close, vibrating slightly against his cheek through her suit. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think, trapped, darkness, shaking, her unyielding form pinning him. His carefully constructed defenses, the sarcasm, the forced pragmatism, they shattered. Raw terror ripped through him. He gasped, a ragged, choked sound. And then something shifted. Her grip didn't loosen, but the quality of it changed. It wasn't just stabilization anymore. It felt protective, or maybe possessive. He couldn't tell. Her faceplate was inches from his face in the dim red light. He could see his own wide, terrified eyes reflected dimly back at him. Was that a tremor in her hands holding him, or just the shaking of the deck? Your biosigns are critical, she murmured, her voice lower now almost. Rough, extreme distress. He couldn't speak, just trembled against her. He felt utterly exposed, vulnerable. The valuable data was freaking out. Her head tilted down slightly. The blank faceplate came closer. Closer. Was she examining him, assessing the damage? He closed his eyes, bracing for another clinical diagnosis, another cold touch. Instead, impossibly, the faceplate pressed against his forehead. Cool, smooth, unyielding. Not a kiss, not an attack. A contact. Deliberate, unexpected, utterly alien. It sent a shockwave through his system, silencing the panic for a heartbeat, replacing it with stunned confusion. What was she doing? The pressure remained for a second, 2 seconds. Then she pulled back slightly, though her arms still loosely held him. The shaking seemed to subside momentarily. Tactile pressure, she stated, her voice returning almost to its usual flatness, but with an underlying current he couldn't decipher. Sometimes utilized in my species to mitigate acute distress signals in bonded units. Bonded units, not medical procedure, not asset preservation. Bonded units. He stared up at the blank faceplate, dimly lit in red. His heart was still pounding, but the raw panic had receded, replaced by a confusing mix of fear, shock, and something else he couldn't name. Something dangerously close to connection. He swallowed, his throat dry. Did you just? He couldn't finish the question. Applying known stress reduction techniques, she clarified, though it didn't feel like clarification. It felt like an excuse. Your status remains critical but has shifted from panic state. Her hands loosened slightly on his arms but didn't release him entirely. Still too close, still trapped, but the nature of the trap felt different now. The shelter was quiet again, save for the hum of emergency power and their breathing. The immediate danger outside seemed to have paused, but the danger inside, the emotional, physical, utterly confusing danger, felt like it had just irrevocably escalated. He looked at the unreadable face inches from his, the faint red light reflecting nothing, and knew, with a chilling certainty, that just surviving wasn't the only threat anymore. He had survived the crash, survived the medical bay, maybe even survived this attack. But surviving her, that felt like a different kind of battle altogether, and he wasn't sure he had the defenses for it. The silence in the small, red-lit shelter stretched, thick and heavy. The external chaos had subsided into an ominous quiet, punctuated only by distant groans of stressed metal. Hayes stood frozen, Seven's hand still resting lightly on his upper arms. The spot on his forehead where her faceplate had pressed felt simultaneously cold and burning. Bonded units. The phrase echoed in the cramped space. A clinical term dropped into a moment of pure chaos and unexpected intimacy. If you could call pressing a faceplate against someone's head intimate. With her, maybe it was. He finally found his voice, though it came out rough. So, that's a thing, headbutting the pain away. The sarcasm felt thin, fragile. It is not aggression, Seven corrected, her voice level. It is a focused application of proximity and pressure to override chaotic neurological signals, reserved, specific. She withdrew her hands completely, stepping back half a step. The small distance felt like miles, yet the tension ratcheted tighter. He rubbed his forehead, trying to erase the phantom sensation. Right, specific. He leaned back against the wall, needing the support. His legs still felt shaky. The adrenaline left him feeling hollowed out, raw. She turned slightly, monitoring the control panel. Red lights blinked steadily. External sensors indicate localized atmospheric stabilization. Primary assault appears to have ceased or withdrawn. So we made it. The immediate threat is reduced. Facility status remains critical. Structural integrity compromised in multiple sectors. She tapped something on the panel. Communications are offline. Life support in this unit is stable for approximately 12 standard hours. 12 hours, trapped in here. After that, great. Just great. He slid down the wall again, sitting on the cold floor. avoided looking directly at her silhouette against the red glow. "Your vital signs are normalizing," she reported, sounding like the medic again. Clinical, distant, as if the last few minutes hadn't happened, though stress indicators remained significantly elevated. No kidding. He pulled his knees up, resting his arms on them, tried to get his breathing under control, tried to process. She'd saved him. She'd called him an asset. She'd used force against her own kind. And she'd performed some kind of alien emotional first aid via head-to-forehead contact. It was too much. "Why?" he asked, the question quiet but sharp in the enclosed space. "Why override orders, risk yourself, for valuable data?" She didn't turn from the panel. "My directives include ensuring the continuity of valuable research assets. Your unique biological signature constitutes such an asset." "That's it, just following orders, even when you had to break others." A pause. He watched her back, the set of her shoulders, rigid, controlled. Protocol conflicts require prioritization based on calculated potential outcomes and directive hierarchies. "Calculated," he repeated bitterly. "Everything's data and calculations to you, isn't it?" She finally turned, her blank faceplate catching the red light. "Is that interpretation distressing?" "It's," he searched for the word, "dehumanizing." "You are human," she stated, as if that explained everything. "I am not. My processing is different. My directives are clear." "But that head thing, that wasn't in the manual, was it? That felt different." Her faceplate tilted almost imperceptibly. "It was an application of known behavioral science from my species, a logical attempt to mitigate extreme physiological distress endangering the asset." "The asset," he echoed, feeling a surge of anger. "Stop calling me that." "What designation would you prefer?" "My name, Caleb or Hayes or the human, anything but asset or subject." Acknowledged, preference logged, Caleb, saying his name still felt off, calculated, like she was testing its effect. Silence fell again. He stared at the floor. The air felt thick, charged. He could still feel the pressure where her faceplate touched him, the memory of her solidness as he collided with her strength holding him. It was a confusing mess of fear, resentment, and a strange, unwelcome flicker of something else. Dependency, gratitude. He pushed the thoughts away. Survival. Focus on survival. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt warped in the dim, humming confinement. Neither of them spoke. He drifted into an uneasy, shallow doze, head leaning against the vibrating wall. He jerked awake sometime later, unsure if he'd really slept. Seven was still standing, sentinel-like, near the door panel, unmoving, untiring. "Any change?" he asked, his voice raspy. "Negative, external conditions unchanged. No communications." More waiting. He pushed himself to his feet, needing to move. Paced the tiny space, 2 steps one way, 2 steps back. Seven tracked his movement, her head turning slightly. He felt like a rat in a cage again, observed. He stopped packing, leaned against the wall opposite her. "Are you okay?" he asked, the question surprising him as much as her. Her faceplate was inscrutable. "My operational status is optimal." "That's not what I meant. Please clarify." He sighed. Forget it. How could he ask about feelings when she processed everything as data? But he couldn't shake the feeling that something had cracked beneath that composed surface during the chaos. The way she'd said bonded units, the slight hesitation, the unprecedented physical contact. "The action you took," she said suddenly, breaking the silence, "colliding with me, was it intentional?" He blinked. "What? No, the place was shaking. I lost my balance." "Your trajectory seemed directed towards the exit." "I panicked," he admitted, "wanted out." "Understood." Panic response logged. She paused. "The secondary contact, the pressure applied to your forehead, did it achieve the intended calming effect?" He hesitated. It had, strangely, but admitting it felt vulnerable. "It stopped the panic," he conceded. "Confused me more than anything." Confusion can be a byproduct of unexpected stimuli disrupting established neural pathways, she stated clinically. Further analysis required. Oh joy, more analysis. He looked away, focusing on the faint red light on the wall. He was tired, tired of being scared, tired of being confused, tired of being a specimen, tired of the tension coiling between them in this tiny metal box. He had to accept it. He was stuck here with her, and the lines between medic and guard, between alien and something else, were getting dangerously blurred. Whether it was calculated on her part or some weird reaction to stress, it didn't matter. The dynamic had shifted. The clinical distance was gone, replaced by this raw, unpredictable tension. He looked back at her, met the blank stare of the faceplate. She hadn't moved, but he sensed attentiveness, a focus directed solely at him, not just a medic monitoring vitals, but something more intense. He took a breath, let it out slowly, accepted the fear, the confusion, the unnerving proximity, accepted the danger not just from outside, but the emotional danger right here in this box. Okay, 7, he said, using her designation deliberately, trying to reclaim some distance, some control. 12 hours, you said. Let's just try not to collide again. Her head tilted again, a flicker in the reflection, or just the light. Agreed, Caleb. The use of his name felt less like data entry this time, more like acknowledgement. Maintaining spatial integrity is preferable. Preferable, not optimal, not efficient. Preferable. A subtle shift, a tiny crack. The tension didn't lessen, but its quality changed again. Less like fear, more like anticipation. The end of the 12 hours, the opening of that door, suddenly felt both desperately desired and strangely daunting. The ambiguity hung in the air, thick and red. A connection, forged in chaos and confusion, terrifyingly real, had been made. Where it led was anyone's guess. And for the first time, he wasn't entirely sure he just wanted to go home.